Thank you for joining.
Awesome. I think we're live. Thanks, Michael. I just wanted to welcome everyone and thank you guys for joining the first student demo day, where we're joined by Michael Krulik, Video Product Evangelist here at Avid. And he's going to walk you guys through the new Media Composer and the new UI. Now we've got a Q&A chat at the bottom there, so please be sure to utilize that throughout the webinar, ask your questions and make your suggestions as well if you guys have any topics or ideas or thoughts on what you'd like to see for some of these coming up. Because again, these webinars are designed for you, for students, for people entering into the industry. So yeah, be sure to ask some questions and utilize this time with Michael as best as you can. So yeah, on that note, Michael, I will throw that over to you and yeah.
Great, good job, Shauna. That was awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Michael Krulik out of Los Angeles, California. Thank you so much for joining. We are going to go over Media Composer 2020.8. We do have 2020.9 coming out at the end of the month with a lot of great changes there, but we're going to be talking about 2020.8 and the new UI, the new user experience with Avid. And just a little beauty screen here. If you don't know Avid Media Composer, it is 30 years old, over 30 years old now. So 30 years of development. You'll see Sylvester Stallone is at the system, Michael Bay. We have Deadpool 2 and Dirk Westervelt there and a bunch of other people. But you know, Media Composer is the leading nonlinear editing system that's used for TV and film around the world. So it's definitely something that you want to know if you don't know it. If you do know it, there's a lot of great features in there, a lot of stuff that you may not know is in there. But the idea of today is to go over, you know, basics, talking about the new UI, talking about some of the new features and things that you may not know were in the software. So one thing to start out with, recently we are supporting Media Composer on Catalina. So if you are on Macintosh, we do support it on Catalina now, if you didn't know that. We support, you know, Windows 10, and I think we go back to High Sierra for an OS on the Mac platform. So depending on what you have, you can use it. Just a couple of things with the new UI. We did create a whole new user experience. If you've used an older version before 2019, we have made some changes here with, you know, locked panels if you want them, which I'll show you. We have some new finishing tools that allow you to go higher than HD, also to go to ACES for the Academy Color Encoding System and work in HDR. And it's all customizable, which is perfect. So some other things, the project sidebar, inspector tool, custom picker, different timeline and Avid features and enhancements with the titler, and OpenEXR, and just a whole bunch of stuff. So this is the little splash screen for finishing. So ACES being able to work, you know, 8K, you actually can make 16K projects and also export EXR and IMF from the system. So we'll go ahead and get into the demo because that's why you're here. You want to see the good stuff. So let me launch into Media Composer. Just to start out, this is Media Composer. Again, I'm working off of a laptop, so I have a single display, but you can work on 2 monitors. If you do hook up extra monitors, you can spread out your workspace across 2 displays and just have more real estate. But that's totally up to you. But I wanted to start out with this just to show you a basic setup. This is a TV show here in the States you may have seen. I don't know if you have it in Australia, called The Orville. Really funny.
If you are referring to your leg, I have hidden it, given its importance to you.
So on my laptop, I have just a local connected drive with media on it and able to work with, you know, multiple layers of video, multiple layers of audio in this whole new brand new user experience, new modern user experience. So just to give an overall look here, you'll see on the right-hand side, we have what are called our task-oriented workspaces. So right now I'm currently in the edit workspace. If I click on color, it takes me in for color correction. We have effects and we have audio. So these are the basic workspaces that you can set up, but you can also customize. You'll find that when you are working in Avid Media Composer, you can customize your keyboard, you can customize your workspace, you can customize a whole variety of different settings, and you can save any of these workspaces and layouts on the right side here in the task-oriented workspaces. Now, we also have this built in. You can hide this if you want that real estate. If I right-click, I can say hide, and you'll see that it takes away that workspace sidebar, but we can go in under Windows. You see workspaces here, or if you point to the upper right-hand corner, you have the workspaces up here as well. The ones down below here are custom. So if you do create a workspace or a look that you like, we'll bring back the sidebar. If I go in just quickly and show you, if I move a space and I say, oh, I like that, I want to save that, I can click the little widget down to the lower left-hand corner of the active workspace and say, new workspace. We'll just call this new. And now that comes up right down here as a brand new workspace that I've created. So customize to your heart's content. Change anything, save the settings, save your workspace. You're customizing it the way you want to work. Okay? So let's start at the beginning. How do you start Avid Media Composer? Well, of course, you launch the software. I'm just going to close the project and bring up the new project management window. And what this lets you see is a preview of your projects. Now, there's two different views here. We can go in and resize this, by the way. We couldn't do this before in previous versions of the software. But you'll see I have a frame view of my projects. When you're inside of an Avid Media Composer project, you can right-click on your source or your record window when you have media in it and say, create a poster frame of that image. And that's going to be the poster frame or the representative frame in your project management window. Now we have two ways to look at your projects. If I click right here, we do have a list view. So you have the name of the project, you have the frame, you have project type. Any of these columns can be moved around and customized or hidden. If you don't want the frame rate, hide it. Take that away. Totally customizable. You can also change the size of the view here with the slider to give me a larger frame or smaller frame. And if I right-click in the window, I can set the font size. So if I want a bigger font, I can see that. Set font, and change the size depending on what you want to see, what you're customizing. Okay, so currently I'm just in the project selection window. If I want to create a new project, how do I do that? Here's new project. I select that. I can type in a name. We'll call it Demo Day 1. Under here's my Format tab. So I can choose the format that I'm creating a project. Now, Media Composer, if you haven't used it before, you're setting a project that you're working in. So if you know you need to create something that's HD, go to HD. So here we have HD 1080. You can then choose your frame rate, 23.9 or 24 or 50 or 29.97. You're choosing your project format and frame rate that you're working in for the complete editorial process of your project. Now, you can take other media that are different formats and frame rates and add them to your project that you create. So don't worry about that. You can keep the frame rate, you can convert it, you can transcode it. But what you're doing here is you're setting up a project format and frame rate to work with throughout the entire process of your project, okay? If you haven't seen or known, you can go up to 16K projects when you're working. And you can also create custom projects. Now, what that means is I can type in a raster dimension. So if I need to do something that's 1000 by 1000, it will create a 1000 by 1000 frame format to work in. So if you need to create something odd for a website or to put into a box or a Snapchat window or something, you can create different formats and frame rates. A lot of people didn't know that. They were stuck to thinking that they can only do HD or 2K or 4K or UHD. So you can create your own, you can save these as presets and bring them up at any time. Okay. I'm just going to go in and create a HD project in UHD, 2K, 4K, 8K, 16K, HD, demo day 1. And I also want to point out the user profile. Now, MK, Michael Krulik, 5 is my current one. If I click here, I can create a new user profile. The great thing about the user profile is it's set for you. So when you type in your name, any settings that you save, any settings you create, any workspaces, any looks are saved to your profile. So that means you could take that profile and open it up on other systems that have Media Composer. So you want to go in and create a user profile, give it your name, and anything that you do, you choose that profile, it's going to change the way that you work. All right. We also have color spaces. I don't know how advanced we want to get here, but if you do want to work in HDR or anything higher than a standard RGB or YCBCR HD format, you can choose it right here. Okay. And if you are doing 3D, we have stereoscopic, but don't worry about that. There's only a few people who are doing stereoscopic at this time, but you can do it in here where you can work in 3D. All right. So demo day 1, here's my user setting. There's my project. Before I go in and create it, I want to point out on the left side here, there's a button or a window for what's new. Now, this is important because we have releases, revisions of the software and updates that happen on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. So if you want to know what's new in those versions, you click here and you'll see this started ever since 2019. I can go to 2020.6. I can open this up and it's giving me a high-level overview of what's new. What were the changes that were added in that software? So if I look at something and say, well, I don't know what variable frame rate media support is. If I click the I for information, it would take me to online support to tell me about that format. Oh, hi, house party. It would take me to information on that what's new piece that I want to take a look at. So it's a nice way to not have to dig through a bunch of documentation or Google things. If it's just a series of new fixes, we have some updates here with information, but it's just a nice way to go in and say, oh, Catalina support was in 2020.4. I want more information on that. So that is what what's new is in the project management window. So I'm going to go ahead and create a project. Again, this is brand new, so we're not going to have anything in my Media Composer UI. I hit create. It's now going to launch me into my demo day 1 project, and I have a clean slate to start working with inside of Media Composer. Okay, so here I am. This is basically a clean slate with my panels. The panels are locked. Bottom here is my timeline. You'll see that every panel has a name on the left side. So my composer window is my source and record. So those are my raw clips. What I edit is in the right side. My timeline down here is, of course, my sequence. We'll see the timeline of my tracks of video and tracks of audio. This is my bin container. A bin container contains bins. So we can put folders and a bunch of media inside of this window here. And down the left-hand side here is my project sidebar. That's going to be a list of my bin names and folders and things that I use to create my project. You'll also see inside of this panel, I have the effect palette. You can embed panels inside of panels. And we're going to talk about that when I start going through the UI a little bit. Okay? Just so you know, when you start out initially with Media Composer, you don't have that project sidebar. So I'm going to bring that in and show you how to dock that into your UI. So actually, I'm going to pull it out just to start fresh. So here I have my bin sidebar, my composer window, and my timeline window. So any window can be docked or it can float, meaning I can pull that out of the display. If I go to the tools and bring up a window like the project sidebar, right now it's floating. So I can take that window, I can move that around, I can have it hover or float, which means things can hide behind it. If I want to dock this into my UI, I grab the title, and as I move it, you see the green bars that populate all around the UI? Those are my drop zones. So that means if I point to any of the green bars, it's going to place the panel wherever that lighter area is. So if I put my project sidebar over here, you'll see it fills that window and it's now docked into my UI. Okay? So project, bins, source record, timeline, all docked to the UI. So that means anything is locked, giving me a nice clean look to my user interface. Okay. Again, if you want to save anything to a paneled display, you're on the workspace, you click the little widget down here, and you save current, which means save it to the current workspace or create a new one. And it'll drop a new one down here in the list below. Okay, so it's clean. We have nothing in the project right now. Let's go ahead and add some elements. So I currently have the demo day bin 1 open. That's right here. I can name the bin. If I click right here, let's go ahead and just name it media. So that's my media bin. If I want to create new bins, I right click, I can say new bin, and it adds a new one. Notice how it's right next to one another. So it's tabbing any new bins that are created next to the other ones. So I could now go in and I can have a music bin, and I can have a cuts or sequence bin. So I now have multiple bins in my bin container. A bin container contains bins. Now the bin container can also be modified to have bins docked and moved around in my paneled UI. So I can take music, if I pull down here, and I can say, let's put music on the bottom of the window. And I now have a nice little slider separating the media bin, the cuts bin, and the music bin. And I could take the cuts bin and I could put it down here. So I have a little like window slider to clean that up. So I'm creating a look. I'm deciding how I visually want to have my bin set up. I could have them all tabbed if I wanted to, or I could separate them into this one window. Okay. So I'm just going to bring in some media. So let's go to the media bin. And I could do this a couple of ways. I could right click. I could say input, source browser. The source browser is the window that takes me to look at my external drives, my internal drives, my shared storage if I'm connected to it. I can also access that under File and Input, Source Browser. I think I can do that under Tools as well. Yep, Source Browser. Those can also be mapped to a key. So before I even go into into some of the media, let me show you how to set up your keyboard the way you may want to work. Now, any settings in your UI, under the File menu, settings are right here. And the settings are your Format tab. That's showing me my current setting, which is HD, 1920 by 1080, YCBCR, the standard format for my current project. The project settings, things like media creation, audio, some general settings. User settings, these are ones that when you change them, they are going to be assigned to you by your username. So if I go to keyboard, it's going to bring up my keyboard. It's a default keyboard that's created by Media Composer with all sort of buttons. You hover over them, you can see what they are. Lift, extract, splice in, overwrite, mark in, mark out. And if I go to the command palette under the Tools menu, these are all of my buttons that I can map to my keyboard. And they're separated by, move, play, edit tools, trim tools, effects, multicam, tracks, smart tools, a variety of different things. And if I want to map anything to my keyboard, I'm in button to button reassignment here. I can take any button drag it up to my keyboard, and let go. And I've now mapped that key to my keyboard. And that's saved to my settings. And that can be done at any time. You can map your keys, you can map your buttons, and you can map your menus. So the menu to button reassignment, if I want to map the settings key, remember I had to go to File and go to Settings to bring that up, or I could hit Shift Command equals. If I want to map that to a keyboard, I go to Menu to Button Reassignment. I choose the button I want to map it to on my keyboard. Now that it's highlighted, I go to my menu, I select Settings, and now anytime I hit this key, the settings window will come up. So any pull-down menu option can be mapped to a key as well. Okay, excuse me 1 second. All right, let's get into some, bringing in some media into Media Composer. All right, by the way, if you look here, the settings window is a panel. I can take that and dock that to my UI if I want and save that as a setting. Cool. All right. Excuse me. So I'm in my media bin. I right click, go to source browser, or that could be mapped to a key. And I want to select from my desktop, I have some editor interviews. And here we have Doc Krotzer. He's edited Glee, Quarry, Good Behavior, some really great shows. And what I want to do is I want to link to these. These are 2K files that are on an external drive or on my internal drive. And I want to link to them. You'll see down here, linking, choosing the files, and click link. Watch what happens here in my media bin. There they are. I've linked to them. They're pointing to that media, and you'll see the icon here actually has like chain links. It looks like chain links next to it. That's telling me that those are linked files. Now I could select import, and import lets me choose a codec or resolution to import it to, whether it's DNX HD, whether it's 1:1, we have LongOp, we have J2K, we have ProRes. So you can import and convert it to media if you want as well. But depending on your system, you could actually probably link to and work with the media that you have. The nice thing that you have about linking before you import or convert it, a double click, is you can play it
at the same speed. And whenever you inject a new,
and it's playing linked media. I can scrub, I can, move around.
whenever you inject a new,
That's actually multicam. You'll see it's 2 shots. So here we
and
have,
whenever you inject a new,
again, doc, we can go in and change the size of those if we want to have a better representation of the image here. But this is a 2K file, but I'm in an HD project. So it's scaling it down to play in HD. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and grab some more media, but I want to show you something that else is really cool when you're in the source browser. Now I have 3 folders here. The folders are Kate Haight, Doc Krotzer, and Stuart Bass. So some editors, they're talking about some tools that they like using, but I want to bring in the media by their names. I want to create a folder or a bin with the names of each editor that has the media inside of each of these. So imagine you've gone in, you have all of your media, you've separated the bins or the media into separate folders. I can select the folders. I come down to the right side here and I say create a bin based on a folder when I link to them. So what's going to happen? Watch. I hit link. It's now creating a Kate bin, a Doc bin, and a Stuart bin. And when I click, you'll see each bin has the media linked to it. So it's already organized. It's already set up the way I want it. So you could link to a bunch of media. You can link to folders that will create bins with that media. You can also drag and drop from the desktop or from a folder to a bin and it will import it unless you hold down Option. If you hold down Option, it will link to that media. Let's see if I can do that. Let me bring in some media, go to the desktop. We'll go back to the editors here. Here we have Stuart. If I click and drag him into one of the bins, it's going to start importing. We can stop that. So instead of just doing a standard drag and drop, I'm going to hold down the Option key when I do that, and it links immediately. So you do have ways you can do it. Drag and drop with Option and link, or go to the source browser. Okay. Now what I want to point out here is while I'm working with the media, I could go and I could drag right into my timeline and start, editing the sequence together.
There's an effect in the Media Composer effect.
The very first show
So I just dragged and dropped. I didn't make any cuts there. Or I could double click and mark ins and outs. So hitting I and O on the keyboard.
Jump cut, throw this effect on there and it morphs it. So I use it all the time.
So I'll take Kate saying I use it all the time right here and drop that in.
drives.
Morphs it. So I use it all the time.
I also like to color code clips. If you take a look at the left-hand side of your bin, and your bin contains a whole lot of metadata. There's a lot of information pertaining to each clip there. So I can go in and start color coding clips. Let's say I want all of Kate's to be yellow. I want all of Doc's to be green, and I want all of Stuart to be pink. All right, so we have a representation of the colors and the clips and things like that. It's kind of bright, but you get the idea. And if you go down to the fast menu, wow, time's going fast. If you go down to the fast menu are the lines in your bins, in your windows. Anytime you see that, that means it's going to bring up some more tools. And from here, I can go to clip color, and you'll see that I have the source clip color turned on. If that's off, that's just going to use the standard green and blue colors. But if I've color coded media, and I go to clip color and turn on, use the source colors, you just get a really nice representation of your media. So when it's all cut in, you can basically see what's in the timeline. Okay. While I'm working with this media, and again, I could be in 2K, I could be in UHD, but I'm in HD and I have 2K media here. All right. Actually, before I get started, are there any questions or anything I should be looking at so far?
No, we're all good so far. We've got a few questions, but I think we're going to leave them till the Q&A.
Q&A. All right.
Yeah, don't forget to ask your questions, guys, throughout this.
Thank you. So I want to talk to you about a feature called FrameFlex. And FrameFlex is letting you go into a clip and do a framing, a reframing of it to get a really nice zoom in or pan that you can move in your sequence if you want. So here we have a shot of Kate Haight. If I go in and right click on the clip, I can go to the source settings, and I have a bunch of control on the clip with source settings. I can add a lookup table or a color. I have audio control where I can slip audio if it's out of sync. But FrameFlex lets me go in and reframe the shot. Now, again, the shots are in 2K. You can see that the image size here, it does tell me that the image is a 2K file, but I'm in an HD project. So I can go in and get a tighter frame of Kate right here. And when I apply it, watch what happens in the source window, as it's now done a tighter crop on Kate that I can now cut into my timeline. So we'll take that, drop her in here. All right. So now if I want to go in and modify or do a effect on Kate, we haven't gone into effects yet. I'm trying to fill in some time with jumping all around. We need to do more of these, Shauna. If I go into this and I want to go into my effects, that's the effect workspace. you'll see that it's showing me the extraction of the image, and I can now go in and keyframe. So keyframes let me add movement. I could do resize. So now I've created some movement on Kate, which when I go back to my sequence and play it out.
An actor. And there's a jump ahead too much and the camera doesn't move, you can take that pause out and morph it and you can't see it at all.
Well, that was good timing. Camera doesn't move and I made it move. So that is just a quick, jump into the frame flex. Again, you're reframing. You can go in and then animate that and make any moves. So if you shoot 4K on your iPhone, you can go in and do a nice little tight move on that and move that around. Or you could just use the entire 4K image in Media Composer, depending on how you want to work. Let me go back to another project. So we have a whole bunch of stuff going on. So I'm going to close this project, the Demo Day project. I'm going to open up the other project that I had with the Orville in it. So we'll go back to this one right here, just double click. And so this is obviously a pretty full project. I have a whole bunch of drone media. So you'll see some nice drone clips here. Your bins can be displayed multiple ways. If I come in, you'll see I can pull a bin out, make that as large as I want, so that can float or it can be docked. A bin, you'll see that has a lot of media in there. The bin itself, if I move the slider, you can change the frame size. And you have text mode, frame mode, and storyboard mode. You can actually type in comments below here. So frame mode, again, lets you see a representative frame of the clip. If you want to play a clip without actually putting into the source or the record window, I could click on a clip and just hit play, and you'll see it plays. So you can get a preview of your images before even bringing it into your source or your timeline, which is really nice. Okay, so frame mode, text mode, again, you have all of your metadata, all this information. This little bar right here is a bin left lock, meaning if I want to keep all of the information visual to the left of this line, now when I go into move to look at the columns, it doesn't destroy any of the information on the left here. Okay. In frame mode, you'll see if I scroll, I have a lot of frames here. I have a lot of clips. But if I right click and choose show bin map, this is going to bring up a little visual representation of my bin. That's the full size of my bin, and the only area that I'm seeing is what's in the white outline here. But I can take that and move that around the UI just to get a better view. It's like a little video game over the bin. And I could do that same thing in my timeline. So when you start building a sequence, if I right click in the timeline, we have show a sequence map. And that also shows a full size of your map, or the timeline, and the little outlined area is the area that's being displayed right here. This, by the way, can be docked into your UI if you go to your timeline settings. It says open the sequence map as an overlay on the timeline. So now if I go to show sequence map, it's down here. Just like the bin map was up here, the sequence map is right there. You click and it turns it off. By the way, the sequence map can be also put into the UI in the in a panel. Okay. So a couple other things I want to go over just in the basic UI. And I think we've covered, your bins. You can create folders. So if you right click in the project sidebar, you can create a new folder. You can create a new bin, and you can put bins inside of folders. So a nice way to clean up your project when you're working is you have a folder, and inside of your folder, you have multiple bins. You can also have folders inside of folders and separate all of your projects and your media. Everything can be named. You have your bins. The bin container, if you have 2 monitors, can go across your entire monitor. And again, the way I split up the bins before, you can just move them around. They can go to the right, they can go to the left. You decide how you want to have your bins displayed in Media Composer. All right. And then that bin can be docked back into the UI if you wanted to. Okay. Now, a couple other things. I want to show you some really cool features that we have that nobody else has, which is phrase find and script sync. I may not have enough time, but I'm gonna try. So phrase find, which by the way comes with Media Composer Ultimate. Media Composer Ultimate for students is only $10 US a month. So for $10 US a month, you could have phrase find, and phrase find is letting you type in a word and it will take you to media where somebody says that word. So right now I have a whole bunch of editors here talking about how they edit. They could be editing documentaries, they could be editing reality. But if you hit on the Mac, Command F or PC, Control F, you'll see phrase find here is grayed out. If you have it, if you purchased it, or if it's included in your software, all that means is you could come down here and choose a language. I have English. Australian is not a language, right? So, no. A colleague told me to say that. If I go into, you can have Hebrew, German, Flemish, Japanese, Korean. This is a phonetic search engine inside of Media Composer. So if you go to English, if I want to type in the word documentary and hit phrase find, it's now going through and looking at all of the media that I have in my project. And it's going to bring up any point where they think there's a match where somebody says the word documentary. So when I double click, it's going to load up, whoops, the clip. Let's see if Chris says documentary.
Kabir.
Documentary, but then you'd have to.
There you go. Again, it was phonetic. So Chris mumbled something that sounded like documentary. Now, the higher the number here in the score, the more likely it is it found a match where somebody says that word. So if we want to type in the word editor, phrase find, it's now found Kim saying,
Editors come to visit my office.
Editor, if you're in features, editor working in an.
How about that? So you don't have to do a transcription. You don't have to have any written word in there. It is doing it by phonetics. And if I go to the settings, you'll see that I currently have a pre-roll of 0. So that's why it immediately goes to where they say the word editor. If I change that to 1 second, now it's going to give me a little bit of lead time.
I think all of us editors.
Before they say,
Caleb, I'm an editor. I've worked.
Well, when other editors come to visit my office.
So now you can go in, you can mark ins and outs around that. You can create subclips and move it. I had to show you that because it's an amazing feature with Media Composer Ultimate. It's called Phrase Find. You can also purchase it for an education price for the standard version of Media Composer, but it's really, really amazing. See, it's about 20 minutes of. Shauna, should we hit any questions or should I just keep going?
No, if you want to go through one of the other options, we've got a couple of questions, but yeah, if you wanted to go over some of the other options or anything else there, or we can go to Q&A, there's no rush.
Yeah, let me go ahead and show you another feature which is in the software called, I'll do script sync in a second, but audio ducking. So imagine you have a sequence that you want to go in and keyframe audio. Let's go to some music. Let's take, where's my music bin? So here I have some music. I'm just going to drop that into my timeline. I don't know how loud this is going to be, so I apologize. That's not too bad. All right. So if you didn't know, in Media Composer, you can select clips and move them up and down in the timeline with the arrow keys. So I just moved the music down. Let's go ahead and take one of the clips with Kate.
To see the movie or the episode. And I get to take the pieces of the puzzle and put them together.
So she's talking about what she loves about being an editor. If I take her and put her into my timeline, of course, when I play it now,
I'm the first one who gets to see.
We can't hear her. So if I right click in the timeline or go to my tools menu, we have audio ducking. And that lets me choose my dialogue tracks, my music tracks, and when I click duck, watch what happens here, is it has now keyframed around her dialogue.
I'm the first one who gets to see the movie or the episode.
And dropped it down. So we could still go in and grab the keyframes and move them up and down if we wish, but it's just a nice way to go in and quickly add keyframes to audio around it. And the last thing I want to show before Q&A, let me go to another project here, is Script Sync. Script Sync is another option that you get with Media Composer Ultimate. And what that allows you to do is if you have a text file with a script, you can actually take video clips that you have put into your project and you can line your script or the video to the actual script. So the way you bring that in is just a text file. I go to New in Media Composer, New Script, and I look for the text file. So let's see, from the desktop, I have some Agent MX0 scripts. Here he is. There it is, Agent MX0 Scene 3. When I hit open, what I get is a script. We'll go ahead and pull that out. We'll float that so you can see what it actually looks like. It's just a text file in Media Composer with the dialogue for this scene right here. So he goes, Mysterion goes, well, 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 if it isn't the infamous Agent MX0. So what I'm going to do is I have the media in this bin right here. If I click, we hear him say,
This is Umbrella.
He even brings it to us. Excellent. Most excellent.
so any dialogue that we have here, we simply highlight the script, just like you would a text file that you're trying to make changes to. And then I take video clips that are here. You'll see in frame mode, there is video there. We'll just take a series of these and I drag and drop them to the area here. Now at this point, all I'm saying is this media relates to this part of the script. But using the same technology that we had in Phrase Find, is I choose Script Sync. I choose the language that I want to use to sync. I choose to select the dialogue, which means take a look at the dialogue and say, okay, and it's telling me how many characters in is that dialogue. When I say, okay, what's happening is it's looking at all of the media, it's looking at the words that are here, and using that same phonetic search technology from Phrase Find, it's going to mark up the clips here to match where the lines of dialogue are being said. and you'll see it start to populate. See it here. We'll let it do a couple more. I'll just stop that for the sake of time. So now, if I double click right here where the mark is, it takes me to him saying,
Well, well, well. If it isn't the infamous Agent MX0. Well, well, well. If it isn't,
so you get a nice little representation.
if it isn't the infamous Agent MX0, infamous Agent MX.
Relating the script to the actual video. So really cool features there, being able to do that. Let me just grab a couple more. Actually, you don't have to see that. If I do have other clips that I do want to add, I simply grab the clip, drag it over here, and it adds it to that group in the timeline, and then we can sync those. Now, once these are sunk, these are now mark points that you can use to even start editing or creating a sequence. So again, some really nice tools. Media Composer is the only system that has phrase find and script sync.
Well, well, well.
well. All right. Excellent. So I'm going to go back to the other project. And just quickly show you Multicam and how we can do Multicam with Media Composer. So multiple takes in a bin, in a project. You can sync up your media by time code, by audio waveform. It's totally up to you as you start working with Media Composer. So here I have multiple shots of Kate. So 2 angles for each. I can highlight both shots. When I right click, there's a group clip option. So we can group by in point, by out point, by time code, or by waveform analysis. So waveform analysis, if you're shooting stuff on an iPhone or you have multiple cameras and you don't have time code, is a nice way to use the audio to sync it up. But I know this has, matching time code here, so we'll just say by time code. You'll see that it did put a group clip in my source here. So this is actually the 2 shots in one single clip. Let me go to my composer settings. I want to bring up extra buttons here because I have my multicam buttons mapped right here. So you can customize those. You can put them to a keyboard. You have a quad split or a 9-way split, depending on how many cameras you have. But now the cool thing is if I have Kate here and we take her entire multicam clip and I drop it into my timeline, this is now a group clip, and we know that because there's a G next to it. All right. But now once I go into multi-camera mode, it now has the multicam window locked with my record. And what that allows me to do is while it's playing, I can do a live switch between my multicam group using my numeric keypad. So in a quad split, the 1, 3, 7, and 9 are the quad. Of course, in a 9-way split, you have all buttons there. So while she's talking, while I'm in multi-camera mode and I'm playing,
There's so many things I love about what I do, but what
I'm
I
just
love
switching.
most, I think, is that I'm the first one who gets to see the movie or the episode. And I get to take the pieces of the puzzle and put them together for the very first.
Now what I could also do is while it's playing, you see the green bar, that's telling me the active cut. So while it's playing,
For the very
I
first
could also
time.
click.
And it's thrilling to see projects
And
really
as I
start to come
click,
together.
it's switching back and forth. And as soon as I'm done, the timeline is switched. Let me just change colors so you'll see. Those are the two different angles.
I love about what I do, but what I love most, I think, is that I'm the first one who gets to see the movie or the episode.
We can go in, we can lasso those, we're in trim mode, we can slide those back and forth to make any editorial changes. Quick, easy. Again, 9-way split. Again, you're cutting live just with the keypad. Doing a concert, doing, your friend's, birthday, or, your family's wedding video, or multicam for interviews, for reality TV. Oh my God. Big Brother, Hell's Kitchen. That's like maybe at least 20 to 30 cameras that they're doing their cuts to. So a lot of work being done. It's about 9 minutes of, should we take a break? Are there anything I should hit upon?
Yeah, I got a few questions here if you're ready for a bit of a Q&A.
Sure.
Ask you a couple here. All right, let me get my video on so it's a bit more of a chat. Hey.
I hope that was good. I hope that there was a lot. I kept looking at the clock thinking, I'm not gonna have enough time. I'm not gonna have enough time.
No, that was great. Thank you for that. And thank you for going through the options as well. I always love seeing that, especially phrase find. I think that's pretty cool. So we've got the first question here from Ben, which is, what are the limitations of Media Composer First? Should I just get the ultimate version, and why?
Good question, Ben. So Media Composer First is our free version of Avid Media Composer. The limitations are there are 4 tracks of video and 8 tracks of audio, whereas the full version, beyond Media Composer First, you have 64 tracks of video and 64 tracks of audio. The Media Composer First software can only do HD, so you don't have 16K, you don't have 2K, you don't have 4K, but if you do have 2K or 4K images, you can cut just like I did here. You can link to the media and it'll scale it down to HD. Okay, so you can still work with it. You can't work with HDR in the free version, but you can, when you need to send something to YouTube or Vimeo or anything in the full version, you have to export it through the export option. Whereas in the free version, under File, there's a Publish to Vimeo or YouTube. So it'll actually create the file for you. So there are many differences with Media Composer First on the full version. You don't have phrase find and script sync in the free version, but you do have audio ducking. So there are some really cool things that are in the free version. So if you do go to our website, there is a window, or at least a comparison chart that shows you what you get or don't get moving from Media Composer First all the way up through the different versions of Media Composer. So good question.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Ben. We've got another one here from Laura. So when working in post, is it also beneficial to know Pro Tools as well as working with Media Composer?
That's a great question also. Is it important to know Pro Tools? I mean, I think it really depends on where you want to focus your career and what you're doing. I mean, I know a lot of editors that are familiar with Pro Tools. Honestly, I am not. I mean, I can open up Pro Tools, I can open up a session, but getting into the real thick of audio and all the effects and things like that, I am not that person. But I'm not going to say that it's not something that you should not think about if that's something you want to do, because there's plenty of editors. There's a lot of effects in here that you can do in Media Composer. You can add any plugin that is just like Pro Tools uses in Media Composer here using the Audio Suite plugins. And it brings up a little, tool just like Pro Tools. So anything you do here will also be sent if you take the sequence and open it up in Pro Tools. So there is a little bit of Pro Tools work here. We just don't have the breadth or the, hundreds of tracks or even more of audio that Pro Tools has in there. But oh my God, if you love audio, go for it. I mean, Pro Tools is the best audio editing software out there, and especially for studio work and stuff that's being done all throughout, whether you're a recording artist or whether you're in the studio with composing music or doing sound design. It's awesome. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. No, that was great. All right, we've got another one here from Mike. Where can I get education pricing for Media Composer, and is it only for students or teachers as well? Do you want to take that one?
Good question. Absolutely. I will actually I'll actually go to the Avid website and show you.
Awesome.
If you do go to the Avid website and you look at Media Composer, or even click buy, if you want to buy Media Composer, when you go and look at any of the options here, you'll see in the purchase window, there is an option for students and teachers. So if you click that, it will tell you what the education pricing is depending on what you're doing. And also, I think if you scroll down, the requirements for education, I think it's just a matter of going in and proving with a student ID or a transcript or something to be able to choose that say that you're a student or a teacher. So again, just take a look here. The Media Composer pricing for just standard Media Composer is $295 US, which is a perpetual license. That is something you keep for as long as you want. And you'll see here that there are add-ons for Media Composer. But if you go to Media Composer Ultimate includes Phrase Find and Script Sync. And for students and teachers, you'll see that the US pricing is $10 a year. Or $10 a year if you do a monthly paid subscription download. So about $100 full, and that includes Script Sync, Phrase Find, Symphony, which gives you high-end color correction. So you can do, UHD, HD, all the way up. So again, take a look here, and it will give you, I forget where it is, I'm trying to see rather quickly, but oh yeah, academic eligibility. If you click on that, that'll tell you what you need to get the student information. But again, Media Composer First is free. You can download it, but it's not limited. It's not going to give you all those tools, but student pricing is awesome.
You're not wrong. So Drew, actually, who is our audio application specialist based here in
Drew,
Australia.
Yes.
He's watching live on YouTube, which is awesome. But he said that we've actually got a couple of questions coming through from there as well. So he's just sent them to me in the chat. So we've got, how well does Media Composer work with an S1 and artist mix for audio work?
Fantastic questions. The S1, if you have or haven't seen it, is a great external audio device that you can connect to Media Composer and use it to ride your levels when you're working. I wonder if I have that. I don't have that in my PowerPoint to show you. But if you go, let me go to Google. You go to the S1.
Google is our best friend.
It is.
Yeah, we've got a lot of info up there, which is good.
So this is the S1. So a really great device. It does work with Media Composer. And by the way, this is an iPad. This could be your iPad that you hook up with, or an Android device that gives you some great control as well. And by the way, it's a free app. So if you go to the App Store, you can download the Avid Control app, which gives you a whole bunch of sliders and control and soft keys that you can map for free. You can also run it on your phone. But if you dock it into the S1, as you see right here, you also have control. The S1 gives you some great control with the faders. I'm not allowed to call them sliders. That's coming from a video person. I know Drew is cringing. But you do have all sorts of controls with the buttons that you can map as well. And this works amazing in Pro Tools. So if you do have this connected to Pro Tools, it was designed for Pro Tools, but it does work with Media Composer.
Awesome. It also works with some other products like Premiere, I believe, as well. So it works with a lot of our, I guess.
Exactly. We can talk about Adobe on the Avid call. Absolutely.
It works with everything.
We do.
It is great, and it's powered by Yukon, which is awesome. So that is a great question there from Drew. I believe he sent another one. Can you open a Media Composer first project in paid Media Composer?
Good questions. These are good questions. Media Composer first is an island. So if you are working in Media Composer first, unfortunately, you can't take bins and projects and open them up in the full version. Yeah, I mean, I think because we want people to buy that. I think there might be a way you can. I don't think you can open up a bin or project in there. I hate to say, unless anybody on the call knows anything different. But as far as I know, Media Composer first is an island. You cannot move anything outside of that.
Cool. Awesome. I might Google that one later as well for myself. All right. And I guess we've got time for one more question. We are 1 minute past, but we'll just smash this one out here from Andrew. Is there anywhere online with more videos on how to use Media Composer so I can learn it? Great question.
That's awesome. Well, one thing I did want to point out, by the way, is I want to point out Matt Fury's podcast, where every Monday he talks to editors, VFX editors, and he even talked to the editor of Parasite and talks to audio people. He talked to Hans Zimmer, just to get some great feedback and information on editing and audio and just a bunch of work that's being done out there. There also are some, if you go to the Avid website, avid.com, and learning and support. There are a lot of videos online. Avid does have a YouTube channel to find things, but if you come down to tutorials, there are, under Browse Now, a whole bunch of tutorials. We have them for Pro Tools, we have them for Media Composer, we have them for Media Composer first, but our YouTube channel also is full with a lot of tutorials as well. So definitely take a look by product, Media Composer first, and get all sorts of information and tools to learn there.
Awesome. And yeah, Matt Fury's podcast is awesome. The one with Hans Zimmer is really cool. And for those who didn't join our last webinar, so this is kind of like a series of events for students. Matt did kind of like an interview with Jason Ballantyne, who is an Australian editor now based over in LA, and he's working on some really cool movies there. So if you do want to, I guess, rewatch that, we'll have the on-demand version coming out shortly in the thank you emails to this as well. So be sure to check those out. And we've got another one coming up with Glenn Humphreys, who is the audio manager over at Deluxe. That's coming up, I think, on Thursday. So some invites have gone out there, but it's just, yeah, really great info from people in the industry and gives you the chance to ask your questions about that. But Michael, we've got a couple of questions here from Brad. I don't know if you've still got a little bit more time to ask those or.
Sure, absolutely.
Sure, awesome. These are a bit more technical ones than what we've been getting. All right, so can I move the timecode track to the bottom of my timeline?
Yes. So your timecode, any track that you want to move, if you hold down Option when you're moving the track, you can move it wherever you want it to go. Yeah, I think in the latest releases, we actually put it in the center just to separate audio and video. But if you do want to move it, if you hold down Alt or Control, depending on your platform, you can grab the track and move it. Yep.
Awesome. And I think Brad answered it. I think we've got David handling the Q&A chat, and he's answered Brad. But just to highlight, does Avid have any color grading and correction software, which I believe you did touch on? And I think we can go over that in more detail on maybe a follow-up webinar to this, but that is the Symphony option, correct?
Yep, that is color correction. Symphony adds more control, like secondary color correction, where if you want to change the color of somebody's shirt or anything without changing anything else, and also shape-based color correction is part of Symphony. So you do have a basic set of tools for color correction in the standard version of Media Composer, but the Symphony option adds so much more.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, it's great that now the ultimate version just kind of has it all. You don't have to worry about getting a bunch of different options.
Not at all. Phrase, find, and script sync.
Exactly. It's awesome. All right, cool. Well, that's probably all we've got time for. If we haven't been able to get to your Q&As, we will be sending out, we'll be able to answer them kind of later, and we'll be sending out a document as well. Of course, this webinar is recorded. So if you've had mates that have missed it, or say you want to go back and view this again and kind of pause it if we went a bit too fast, you can do so. We're just going to give us, like, say, a week, and then hopefully we'll be able to send out the on-demand version for this one and for the webinar that we did with Jason Ballantyne, where he discusses kind of his experience and journey within the industry himself. So thank you, Michael, so much for jumping on here. I know it's quite late over there in LA now.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. That's good. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and answering some questions for us over here in ANZ. Yeah, it was great having you.
Happy to do that. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.